When I first got on,
All
I
right,
just
so
hit
Payne
pause.
Haas. Let's talk more about that.
Pain in my house. I've got a pain in... Yeah, everyone's made that joke. I know. It's like
Sam Walker. Sam Walker's
about
stock's
it
going
when I
up
pee.
this week
Sam Walker.
because he's not getting run out by Payne Haas.
Starting
week.
halfback. It's all right. I've got this.
I am just. I've got nothing.
Welcome to the NRL Supercoach Draft Podcast.
Yeah. Sponsored by the NFL Fantasy Show. Host you two. Maybe this could be my next sound engineering thing. Is I just host you two talking Supercoach.
Yeah.
Not crazy. Not crazy.
In a world of uncertainty,
Rivers jizzing in his pants, and then you bring up your wife in the next sentence. Like, oh, no, where we're going. What is going on?
there is only one place you can turn for fair dinkum advice.
One word, unbelievable. 2 words, holy shit. 3 words, oh my god.
A place where the undeniably American
It sounds so weird in like an Australian accent.
meets the undeniably Aussie.
Hey, let's stop the foreskinning for some absolutely wonderful segments later.
Where the analysis is solid
I, for one, was not one of those haters, as I picked a Rams victory.
Look, I think he can get over 150 yards in this game, easily.
Kick his ass, Tyler Bass!
and everything else is out to kill you.
There's going to be shrinking nutsacks all over the place.
Welcome to the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Well, g'day and welcome into the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. This guy here, Matty C, going to be the host, and along with Manjot and Talor, we're going to be your Aussie tour guides into the recent trade whirlwind that has been going on in NFL land, and we'll be providing all that fantasy and analysis around it that you're going to need if you're going to be champion of your league this year. Before we start, this is something we introduced last week, and I want to do it every show. I'd just like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people who are the traditional landowners of the Canberra region where Manjot and I are dialing in from. And also, I'd like to extend it out to the Dharawal people where Taylor's from as well, up in the Wollongong region. I'd like to pay respects to the traditional landowners and also to the elders past, present, and emerging. It's important to acknowledge the land that we're on tonight. Now, let me tell you, you can find a whole bunch of places to interact with us before we get too far into it. We have been on Instagram for ages. It's a fun follow at Aussie NFL Fantasy. It's also our YouTube. Go find us there and you can watch our beautiful mugs on the internet because that's what everyone wants at Aussie NFL Fantasy. If you want to interact with us and you want to send us stuff to talk about too, because we're coming into Dynasty trade period. We're about to have a whole bunch of drafts and Dynasty drafts and you'd like some opinions. All of us play it. So if you'd like some opinion on it, you can even just send in screenshots to your team. We'll talk about it here on the show. AussieNFLFantasy@gmail.com. But hey, that's all written word, man. What if you're not a written word guy and you'd like to talk like me? Well, you can go to our anchor, Aussie NFL Fantasy at anchor.fm, and you can leave us a voice message of up to a minute. And you'll probably end up on the show because, we love talking. Now, let me introduce the talented lads who have their fingers on the pulse of all these NFL movements. And my first mate, who thinks they're going first this week, by the way? Hands up.
It's Taylor.
Oh, you're wrong. It's you, man.
Yeah, I thought so.
He's the Pastry Press NFL. He's the Pastry Press Sports. He's 40 other places too because of all his podcasting and sports writing. The Manjot, the myth, the legend. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's been a busy time for sure. NFL, free agency, NFL trades. I'm ready to dive in to review it all.
Broncos podcasts.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, Broncos podcast.
Broncos podcast. Not
of
Denver.
course, Pastry Press Sports, follow for any NRL, AFL content. I post nightly recaps and stuff. So
yes,
just putting the plugs out there right now.
Put them all in, brother. Put them all in because you're everywhere.
Yep.
You're bloody everywhere.
Yeah.
And much in the way that this guy bloody wins everything. Winner it's probably his middle name, actually. This guy just wins and wins and wins fair income. Astro League last year. He beat me in all the starts of the week and every competition we had on the podcast last year. In fact, Manjot, you and I were both victims to this guy in the playoffs challenges. And he even beats a slap in the face with a cold fish. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Taylor the Winner Goodall. Welcome, mate.
Because all I do is win, no matter what. You said something about people that like to talk and winners of NFL fantasy and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm either. I may have won a title. I'm not sure. I may like to talk. about my own team, about, NFL related stuff. Not sure. We'll find out soon. Related up. That's a foreskin right there. We'll foreskin that for later.
We're gonna have to get a glossary up for folks who haven't been with us long enough. But yeah, essentially that's us just saying foreshadowing.
I'm bringing all the great stuff in straight away, mate.
Stay tuned for Taylor's NFL glossary. Fantastic stuff.
That's on the first 5 pages.
Wowza, mate.
Sorry, the first 4 pages. Foreskin.
I feel like all this stuff's going to come up at some point, so you might as well just get it out there, mate.
What a start!
What a start! Hey, did you guys see just how much the first episode it's hit the pond of the fantasy community like a big boulder thrown off a bridge, and the ripples are everywhere. Heaps of views on the YouTube, heaps of listens on the podcast world as well. Congrats.
Yeah, look, mate, I'll take this one. We were talking about it on backstage, on this great podcast. We didn't want to talk about it. You guys brought it up. It wasn't me, of course. It just happened to be the first time that Taylor Goodall of Taylor Talk actually showed his face and went on YouTube and wasn't just, behind an anchor or behind a podcast. I know you guys were talking about it. Well, it definitely wasn't me. I showed my beautiful handsome face, and all of a sudden we're getting all these views. But, you guys take it away because you guys are the ones bringing that up.
Yeah. And shame on me, mate.
Of course,
should have never mentioned it. Manjot, do you care to add to that?
I didn't even do anything to promote this except just be on the show. So, it's full credit to the viewers. Full credit to our Instagram community at Aussie NFL Fantasy. Absolute legends for getting us to nearly 900 views. I saw that. That was amazing.
Views. Get a load of that. I'm really impressed. Really, really impressed. So, look, I think we owe it to the people to bring the big trade show because, mate, the NFL, it has been they've been trading like they're just playing fantasy as well, which is sick. Because as Aussies, we're a nation built on trades, right? We trade wool to fucking everywhere, a whole bunch of ore to Eastern Asia, and we even trade insults with the Yanks about Brits having bad teeth. So with all that trading that's built into
can you trade in NFL fantasy? I didn't realize.
Okay,
wait, you can't,
mate. We'll chat later.
I didn't realize you can trade. I didn't realize it was a trade button. I don't do many trades, mate. So
none at all. Mate. None at all. You're like Cleveland, mate. Trades everywhere.
Yeah.
We've gone ahead and picked 10 players. That's what we've done in this show. We've picked 10 players who we think are really impactful in fantasy and to discuss their moves. Now, I know we all did such great show prep, and we're
of
all
course. Absolute analysis.
Yeah.
We're ready to dive in.
It's all up here.
Look, and we talked about this through the week. We've prepared who we're going to talk about, but, we don't play fantasy. We live it. We live it. It's the middle of the off season, and
all I do is win, no matter what.
Yeah,
it's a big show. It's a big show. Yeah,
and I think it doesn't get bigger than starting with Russell Wilson. Wow, the guy who can never win an MVP, and now all of a sudden he's gone in this really wild trade to Denver. We were going to cover the reverse part of that trade later on, but I'm going to kick it to Taylor first and say, hey, Tay, give me your thoughts about Russell Wilson going to Denver. What's that going to do for him and Denver?
Yeah, not too many thoughts. Of anyone who knows me, I'm pretty bland about Russell Wilson. I always stay on the fence. I don't call him an absolute spud, and I never call him an absolute choker in the second half of years. So, it's you came to the wrong person because you're not going to get absolute sound bites out of me talking about Russell Wilson. Look, is he going to be an MVP candidate in the first 4 or 5 weeks? Probably. Is the team going to fall into an absolute pile of shit in the second half? Probably again. He's going to look absolutely wonderful for the first half of the year. I've put it out to people. Were we being ridiculous that we were even making such a big deal about Russell Wilson? Is the guy actually spent? And I got a lot of hate from a lot of people by even bringing that up. And I think there's an absolute chance that this guy just isn't who he used to be. And I know you'll say, well, a lot of people aren't who they used to be outside of Brady because he just gets better with age for some reason. He's just like a fine Merlot. that guy. But Russell Wilson hasn't been the same guy for a long, long time. Like you've seen, look, he had the reasons as he had whatever the hell was going on with his hand last year. He had the finger injury. He came back too early. It was clear. And a lot of people are going to use that as a reason as to why he didn't come back well. But you can't tell me that the 3 years before that, when he had absolutely wonderful stats in the first 6-7 weeks, everyone's, up his absolute asshole about being the MVP. How good's Russell Wilson? This guy's the best. We'll have him on any team. He's absolute best. No, he absolutely went to shit in the last 9 or 10 weeks every single year. This guy isn't the same as what he used to be. I don't care that he's gone there. Honestly, I know he's going to be better than what they had before because he could not be worse. So all of a sudden, this Denver team gets better. You can't at me and say, oh, look, Russell Wilson's this awesome quarterback because Denver are better. They are guaranteed to be better because they don't have Drew Lock there. There's no other way. It doesn't matter who you put there. It's going to be better than Drew Lock. But I'm telling you right now, this guy isn't going to take them to the promised land. They are in a ridiculously hard division. Yeah, okay, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton might get a little bit better. Yeah, I'm still not taking them at the fantasy value they're going to be at because everyone's going to think that they're ridiculously high just because Russell Wilson's gone there. Russell Wilson hasn't supplied a top whatever wide receiver in a long time because he gets them to 5 in the first half of the year. Then all of a sudden they plateau to 20 in the second half of the year. So I'm not taking it. I'm not in on Russell Wilson. I'm sure you guys probably are. And I'm making my stand now that he is not the same guy he is. Everyone has talked him up like he's like the best quarterback in the league. He is not. He is definitely not the Russ that we have seen from 5 or 6 years ago. He's plateaued. And I'm sorry, he's just not someone that I'm so astounded at that we had to make some huge news break when he signed there. We got traded.
Okay. That last man, that is just a load of information, lot of dumping right there, man. He just dumped that all on us right there. Wow. Wow, that was an atom bomb.
I'm not saying that they're not going to be a better team. They will be a better team. And I'm not saying that he won't be an MVP candidate again after 6 or 7 weeks. I'm just telling you right now that team falls apart again like it always has under Russell Wilson in the last 4 or 5 years. Show me some stats that denies it.
Well, look at the O-line he was playing with the last 4 or 5 years. He's literally had 0 O-line. The reason I reckon, looking at it from a pure football like sort of standpoint, analytical, non-fantasy standpoint, is in the first 5 weeks, they're always hyping it up. Let Russ cook. Defenses don't know what's coming. He's throwing it deep to Lockett and Metcalf every single week.
Yeah.
And then eventually defenses adjust. They see game film. They're like, okay, we're going to put a safety back there to cover where Lockett is. That's why Lockett doesn't get anywhere near because he just doesn't have the same value because all the safeties take away his deep game. So he's left with nothing because he's just a deep threat. And Metcalf, Metcalf has to be fed the ball. So they have to put the number 1 cornerback onto Metcalf. So technically, it's not really Russ's fault that defenses are adjusting. It should have been Pete Carroll, it was Schottenheimer for a few years as the offensive coordinator. Like, they should have adjusted way better. But to me, I think Russ can get back onto this. He can get back this year. I reckon with a better receiving core than what he had, I'd say, because he has Jeudy and Sutton. They're around the same, I reckon, as Lockett and Metcalf with Wilson, of course.
Yeah,
and Albert O, I reckon you'll see it this year. That's just where I'm leaning, is the Russ effect. Like, just looking at them with him. And also Albert O, everyone's hyping up. His fantasy value is skyrocketing at the moment. If you got him like Dynasty or something, you just got to trade him right now. Because who knows if...
Albert no.
Albert no. But
Albert Ono, yeah.
Yeah, I think Wilson will be a great quarterback though in Denver. I know it's a tough division. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I think Wilson can find his best. because he has a better O-line that's still not fully elite, but they're like around the average. I'd say it's way better than the garbage Seattle had,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Us
So
three are better than that. Like if you just put us three on the line. Yeah.
us
we'd
three,
pick Russ.
clone us twice. You got to clone us twice, though. You
Oh,
gotta
mate,
have
I've
two
got
clones
an
of us.
8-year-old and an 11-year-old who can stack on the ends. No worries. No worries.
Yeah, I got
That's fine.
like 5 footballs as children, so it's all good.
Beautiful. Yeah, we could defend Russ better than that stinky O-line at Seattle. Absolutely.
Yeah. All we had was like Dwayne Brown, who got traded from the Texans to the Seahawks
Yeah.
in 2019, I think it was. That's all he had the last
Really
3 or
is.
4 years. So I reckon if protection improves, if his receivers are around the same, maybe a little worse, but I think they'll be around the same as what Metcalf and Lockett will be. I think Wilson can have a better year this year. It just depends on what Nathaniel Hackett's offensive scheme will do, because he needs to adjust to what defenses will adjust to. You can't just completely just keep throwing the ball deep with Russ every time in the first few weeks, and then that deep ball's taken away and you got nothing. You just got to run. That's all the Seahawks were doing. They just ran it after they had no answers in the pass game after that. That's just from a pure football standpoint. That's how I just have seen the Seahawks as a division rival. That's just how I've seen the
Seen a lot of them.
Seahawks. Yeah, I've seen them a lot.
To me, that's on Russ too, though. Like, you
Hmm.
can't just say that just because he throw the deep ball and it was working in the first half of the year, all of a sudden he didn't have that. Then all of a sudden he's like, all right, I'm going to pass it off to, mix of Rashad Penny, Chris Carson, whoever's there, DJ
Yeah.
Dallas, whoever the hell's there. And then all of a sudden he couldn't work out the defense and he couldn't do anything in between. Like, that's got to be on the quarterback at some stage. Like, it
Yeah.
can't just be, like our coaches didn't plan us well. Like, Russell's got to
We'd mark
realize
down any
that
other
they're
quarterback
taking-
for that. We'd mark
If
down
they're
any
taking-
other quarterback for that, wouldn't we?
I
And
mean,
again, like I'm just saying, like it's got to be on him a little bit. I'm not saying it's all
Yeah.
on him, and I'm not saying he doesn't have a better year than he had last year. I don't think it's
Yeah.
possible for him to have a worse year. Like he
Yeah,
was so bad, he was
Yeah.
horrendous, and everyone is forgetting that and blaming it on the hand and the finger or whatever the hell it was. The what do we call it? A mallet finger?
Mallet.
Did he have a
wait,
mallet
wasn't that
finger?
Taysom?
think that
No,
might have been
Taysom had
Taysom.
the mallet.
He had the 6
Yeah,
Taysom
didn't-
had the mallet.
He had something very similar. It was something that he couldn't actually
Yeah.
grip
In
the
his
ball
hand,
with.
wasn't it?
I can't remember what it was called. But
Wanker's cramp or something. Yeah.
I'm not saying that wasn't part of it. That's not what I'm trying to say here. And I'm not trying to absolutely say that Russ is going to have the absolute worst season in history. I'm just saying that he's the lead of this podcast right now. It shows you how much everyone thinks he's going to absolutely dominate. I'm just saying that there's a world where he isn't the guy that we all think he is. And I'm just not sure he's going to get back anywhere to what he was. I think he's better than anything that Denver has ever had before. I have no question about that. I just don't think we're going to see what we saw out of Russ before. He might work it out with some better coaching or something like that. And Denver will have a decent year, but they're in a very, very tough division. And I can see them starting like a house on fire and falling down to 10-7 or 9-8 or something like that. I just don't think I'm not all in on him. And you can clearly see it in my voice that I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Russ, and it's probably coming out in a bit of bias. But I just have my reasons as to why I just don't think he's worth all this attention. And we're going to wait and see. And I could be wrong.
Yeah.
We see them go 13-4 or something like that. Then you guys can at me. But if he has a horrendous second year like he has in his last few years, then I'll be proven correct. So I'm just planting my flag there.
All right.
Yeah,
I think
fair
every
enough.
time that Denver wins, everyone should at Taylor and just fucking give it to him. I think that's what we've learned there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't think my analysis was terribly different because I just see it as a great upgrade for these two receivers who are nice players, and it may or may not impact Javonte and the running game too much, but I do think it's a bit of a downgrade for Russ. He's just going into a division where it's going to be really, really tough, and some of the defenses around him have really sort of rallied for it. So I think it'll be interesting sledding. But I mean, interesting is a really, really captivating way to start with a fellow like Deshaun Watson, because we haven't seen him in a long time. Now he winds up in this crazy like shopping market of people trying to get him. And then he goes to, I don't know, I think for me, one of the teams who I least thought was likely to get him. Manjot, I'm going to punt Deshaun Watson to you first. And I want to hear what you got to say about it.
Oh, this is one of the most complex matters in NFL history because the dude's literally got 22 civil cases of, harassment, assault against him. These are very serious charges. I know he got cleared of the criminal, but I think the Browns, the Saints, the Panthers, way too desperate for Deshaun.
Yeah.
I think initially I was like, okay, this can pay off. But now I just see it. I'm like, these cases haven't even been resolved. It's just a matter of desperation. They've just gone all in on Deshaun. I've been seeing a lot of takes about it too. And it's really like changed my opinion. I was initially like, okay, wait and see, just wait for Deshaun, his legal situation to really speak my mind on it. But when I see it, I'm still waiting. I'm not giving judgment on whether he's guilty or not. But like the fact that his legal situation hasn't been resolved yet, there's still 22 cases to be played out here in the courtroom. So he might still not play. An NFL suspension might not be there. So it's going to be hard to pass judgment. So this is where you have to look at it. It's if he can play, first of all. And he's already sat out a year. So I reckon the year off might have been good for his body, but also it's just the legal cases are still there. So it might be some mental impact of that. And also he might not play at all because he might get suspended from all his lawsuits. So,
It's a big risk, isn't it?
It's a lot of risk. And I can understand why some Browns fans might be upset about this because it hasn't been fully resolved and everything. So they need to, it's just a tippy-toe line I'm just trying to cross here with all the legal stuff. Now that's out of the way. I reckon I'll push that to the side for a bit. Talking about from like the football fantasy side of it.
Yeah. Imagine
I
he
think
plays.
if he plays, all the cases are like resolved. He does his time suspended and everything. I think he'll be a great addition for the Browns. This is exactly what they've needed at quarterback for God knows since they became an expansion franchise. Literally, Deshaun wearing a uniform is better than what they've ever had as an expansion franchise. Maybe even in franchise history, including including the first Browns.
Wow.
You could say.
Big goal.
Oh well, you had Otto Graham in the 50s. You had Bernie Kosar in the 80s. There's Brian Sipe in the early 80s. Those guys were all playoff contenders for the Browns. But Deshaun can really get you to the Super Bowl, I think. But it's a really hard conference. So Deshaun gives you a chance, but firstly, he has to play, obviously. And secondly, the talent around him, they got Amari Cooper. So I don't know if we're talking about him at this point in time, or am I allowed to bring him in here? Amari Cooper?
Don't bring him in yet. Don't bring him in yet.
Don't bring him in? Okay. We're going to say that for later. But Deshaun's got a bit of a decent cast around him. He's got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt at running back. That's going to relieve some pressure. I think Nick Chubb's fantasy stock, I've been seeing a lot of takes and everything. I got to agree. Nick Chubb's fantasy stock might be going down because of this. Because when they had Baker, they had to run the ball more because Baker was injured as hell. He couldn't get throwing shoulder correct and everything. So Chubb had to take the load. He had to put the team on his back. He got force-fed carries every single game. And then Kareem Hunt also got some carries. So I think both of them would see a decrease. I'm not sure how much of an extent, but I think there's a decrease coming for both of them in terms of fantasy stock because that sort of thing, getting an elite quarterback is going to affect your run game because you want to pass more with an elite quarterback. I think guys like Njoku, some of their tight ends out there, like Njoku, of course, I think his fantasy stock's going to go up. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he could have a solid year. I know he was an answer for Weddle literally yesterday. He was. I think he was yesterday or the day before. He was one of the hard answers.
We're tuning to the show
Donovan
before the show for our girl Weedle, by the way. Oh, Weddle, sorry, because that's
Weddle,
that's the whole thing.
That'll be after the
that.
episode. I think Maddie's going to edit that after this episode. But
it'll be a bonus feature, absolutely.
Yeah, Weddle, my idea, man. Anyway, yeah, I think the Browns will see if he plays, they'll see an improvement. If not, they're just gonna force feed. If he's not playing, force fed carries to straight up to Chubb and Hunt. Yeah,
Yeah,
there we
Kareem
go.
Hunt.
Yeah.
All right, Tay. You look like you're ready to just take a swing at the Browns, mate. You look ready.
I just want to say on behalf of the podcast, before talking about Deshaun Watson, I don't think any of us condone any violence to women.
Yeah.
I don't think that any of us believe that. Look, none of us know what happened. None of us agree. It is a little bit sad that they were just willing to completely forget everything that happened, but I don't want to get political on here. I just want to say that I don't think any of us are talking about this like we don't condone that we condone it at all. So I just wanted to say that first.
No, we've got some very prominent women in our lives, and I think that is well said, Tay. Well said.
Second of all, he's definitely going to get suspension. I think it's probably going to be in the 6-week range. So I'll just talk about them probably even before and after he kind of comes in. It's probably going to be beef brisket, Jacoby Brissett coming in and taking snaps early. And like Manjot said, I think the running game will take a bit of a hit when Deshaun Watson comes in. I think when Brissett's there, it's just going to be same old for that Cleveland offense. I think they're just going to have a huge dose of running the ball. I think I'd be, for a little bit of advice out there, I'd probably be trading Hunt and Chubb around the 4 or 5 week mark. If Watson's coming back, because if they have a huge sort of first 4 or 5 weeks, I think it will see a downtick when Watson's there because they haven't had such a great passer in Watson in a long, long time. Like Baker, I've said on this podcast before, he's better off being a Baker. He's absolute trash. Like he is so bad. Like, and it's proven that they're trying to ask for like first, second, 10th round picks, 1 millionth round picks, and they still can't get anything for him. And it's just because everyone else sees what I'm seeing. He's just not good. He's just terrible. So it's such an upgrade getting Watson in that position. And like I said, they're going to have to toy with that offense a little bit because they can't just run the ball all the time when you've got a guy like Watson who can air the ball out really well. And then, obviously Manjot touched on someone we'll talk about later. Turning up into that team, it's going to definitely help. I just think the offense is going to be better as a whole when Watson's there. In the first 6 weeks, which I assume is going to be a suspension to Watson, that's just pretty much going to be same old from the other years. They've got a great defense. The defense is going to be great again. So they're going to be a chance to win games even with Brissett there. You saw them win games with Baker there and anyone else that was there, Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum was probably better than Baker, to be fair. So they're going to
almost one with Nick Mullins, by the way. Almost one with BDN, Nick Mullins.
Exactly.
Who's now on the Raiders.
Oh, is he? He's the new Nathan Peterman over there. Yeah.
He almost beat the Raiders twice. He beat them with the Niners. He almost beat them with the Browns. And that speaks to their team, as Taylor said. They could literally win with a guy like Nick Mullins, who, granted, his nickname is BDN, but he doesn't play like that, I reckon.
So here's my fantasy call for Cleveland.
Yeah, hit us with it.
Take Chubb and Hunt early. Look to trade them mid-year. Don't take the receivers early. Try to trade for them. I know a lot of people will be in on that, but even if it costs you a little bit extra to get a AC without giving it away or foreskinning, if you need to get a guy like that, I would pay a little bit extra to get him just when Deshaun Watson turns up. So that's a little bit of fantasy advice I would give because I think it's just going to be a huge amount of running early in the season and they're going to have to turn a little bit more to the pass when Deshaun's there because there's no point getting a guy like that if you're not going to do that.
Oof. Yeah. Good point, Taylor. Yeah. I was going to, when Taylor was talking about that early season production, I was like, yes, you got to go for them early and then trade them. I was feeling that sort of vibe from Taylor. Absolutely nailed it on the head. Taylor nailed, I reckon, on that one. Play the drop.
Play the drop. Do we have a Taylor fucking drilled it? Do we have one of those? I think that drop got wore out last year from Taylor just being fucking right about everything.
Yeah, Taylor's got to be playing Jane this year. Taylor's got to sit on the fence because I can't be as bad as the year before either. I've got to be somewhere in the middle.
Got to be somewhere in the middle. But Manjot's in the middle, mate. So sorry,
Yeah,
that's
Manjot's
already
in the middle.
stamped out. I'm afraid.
Can I be
Sorry.
slightly above middle? Well, I'll be happy with that.
All right, so that I think probably puts to bed the Cleveland situation for now. We will come back and talk a little bit more about Cleveland in a minute. Quick break, and then let's get out 2 more quarterbacks. Yeah.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
I got no notes, but I got the memory, so.
Every time I believed them a little bit this year, they've just kicked me right in the testes.
Manjot, myth, legend.
All right, you guys throw me into the fire straight away, but that's why I'm here.
Taylor talk time.
Antonio Brown's out there hanging out with Kanye West. If that's not an insane asylum handing the keys to the inmates, I don't know what is.
Maddie C.
This thesaurus is both terrible and terrible.
I've got nothing else.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
All right, okay, let's pick it up with Matt Ryan because he is my number one favorite quarterback who I'll never talk of again. And now I can't not talk about him because he got traded and he's going to go stink it up at the... No, he's probably not going to... Oh, maybe he will. I'm going to punt it to Taylor first because he and I had Matt Ryan wars last year who could have the shittest performance from Matt Ryan.
Yes.
And the bar
I
kept
remember
getting
this.
fucking lower every damn week. Shoot, Taylor, what do you think of this when going to...
Where do we even start with Matt Ryan? Well, we start with the Portaloo at the back when we just shit ourselves straight into the Portaloo. And then it goes into a hole, not even to an actual toilet. It's just shit everywhere into a dirt pile, and that's pretty much Matt Ryan to a T. It's if you see it, the numbers 28-3 anywhere, you think of Matt Ryan because it means he's going to choke, and he's probably choking on shit. So that's a good start from me. That's pretty much all I can bring with Matt Ryan. I'll try and bring some actual analysis to where he's actually gone. I actually do believe it's a slight upgrade. I didn't believe whenever a lot of people were saying last year when he was with the Falcons that a lot of people thought he was done. I didn't think he was completely done. I just think he was in a completely horrendous offense. And, you lose your number one receiver in Calvin Ridley. Like, the offense is always going to go to shit. Like, especially with that sort of distraction. Like, you have to bring in a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson, who's just like 100 years old and has been used as a special teams guy to be your actual offense. Like, it's never going to work. You've got Kyle Pitts, who's going to be great, but he's in his rookie year. Like, it's just not going to work. I don't think Matt Ryan's done. I just think he was in a bit of a tough situation. Do I think, again, Matt Ryan's what he used to be? No, I don't. But I think he's an upgrade on Carson Wentz because I don't think there's much worse than Carson Wentz out there. And we'll get to that later. He's Ronald McDonald. He shouldn't be out in the sun, and he needs sunscreen. And I know we're not talking about Carson Wentz, but I feel like it works with the fact that Matt Ryan's taking his old job. I spoke earlier about Jonathan Taylor, about not picking him top 5. I think Matt Ryan's probably enough for me to take away that call. I still wouldn't be taking him with number 1. Oh, I mean, everyone's going to take him with number 1, but I'm just saying that I'm happy to sort of fade him. I think he might be more around the 3 to 5. I'm just going to take away the whole call that I said that he wouldn't be top 5. I think that
information we had at that point, I think that was fair, by the way. Just to clear that up, you've got new information. I don't think there's anything wrong changing the call.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's some enormous upgrade, and I still think this offense is going to have its, clunkiness. But I just think in general, it's enough of an upgrade. It's not a huge amount, but I think Matt Ryan's going to find a new home. You always see some guy finding a new home and he just gets a new lease of life. This is maybe his last year, if not his second last year. So I just think he's going to really give it all for this team. And it's, we like to act like the AFC South's better than it actually is when me and 2/3 of this podcast has teams in there, and they're not exactly the greatest division. So they're probably going to get most of their work done. So I just think in general, Matt Ryan's going to be a pretty decent pickup. He's not going to be phenomenal, but he's not going to hurt them. I do think he's going to make them slightly better. And you're going to see an upgrade in terms of Jonathan Taylor and in general. And they've still got a pretty decent offensive line that's going to get the job done. So I just think it's pretty plain vanilla. It's not a huge news raker. I just think they could have got a worse quarterback. That's pretty much what I would say. Is they could have been in a worse situation than they ended up, and they ended up with Matt Ryan, and it's not a bad situation to be. So good on them. They could have been worse, and I don't think they could have been much better. So good on them.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about him potentially getting Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield. Manjot, you've got to imagine this is an upgrade from either of those two, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. As someone who's living the pain of the Jimmy G experience still, somehow just trade that man, please. Anyway, on to Matt Ryan, someone the Falcons actually traded. I mean, he did lose literally Julio and Calvin Ridley. So.
A month apart, pretty much, just start of the season, he didn't have Julio, and then 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, Calvin.
I know. How good was Julio for the Titans? Just an absolute weapon.
Game changer.
I'm glad he's on the roster still. Is he?
Is he?
Is he? No.
I think they just got out the texter and changed Jones to Woods.
I just realised he, basically had hamstrings made of tissue. That was great.
Yeah.
A lot like mine.
Anyway, back to Manjot.
Yeah. So
you brought up Julio.
Colts.
I had to say something. I've got a Titans background.
Yeah. Look, we're talking about 2/3 of the podcast having like affiliations in the AFC South. How about me with my Peyton Manning jersey that I got for Christmas last year? So, just want to say, whole podcast got a jersey of the AFC South. But
we could arrange that for next show too. We all wear our AFC South jerseys and feel nice and warm.
Rest in peace, Steve McNair. Ooh.
Yeah, Stevie. I've got a McNair jersey. Isn't that weird?
Air McNair, man. 2003 MVP with Peyton, of course. Shared MVP.
Eddie George.
There's my OG.
That's my type.
But someone else who was an MVP though, Matt Ryan, 2016 MVP. We were talking about 28-3, right? We were talking about 28-3. He was traded for the 82nd pick, which is in the third round. You switched those around, and it's the 28-3. Yeah, that was, I stole that completely from some Instagram pages such as WTF Stats, absolute legends.
Magic,
out there for that.
Magic.
Absolute legends. Absolute legends. That joke will never die. It was 28-3 day literally last week, so I was celebrating rewatching that game. And Matt Ryan was absolute god in the first half and a little bit in the fourth quarter. But for the rest of the game,
it was toilet water.
Yeah, I mean, a bit in the fourth quarter when he literally threw that pass to Julio, that Julio got on the sideline. Can Pittman do that? I hope so. I hope Pittman can get some a good connection with Ryan. I'm not talking about that specific catch. If he can do that, great. But I'm talking about the connection he has with Ryan. Can he do that? I reckon he can. I reckon Pittman's value has gone up because literally this is not Carson Wentz as we've been talking about. It's not push past Wentz who literally pushes the ball to the opposing defensive lineman. That's the word. Yeah. The opposing defensive lineman or linebackers. Yeah. Exactly. Just it's an upgrade, but he's not going to be so elite. It's still a stacked conference, still a stacked division with the Titans. The Titans are stacked. That is, they're still going to be hard to get past. I still think the Titans got the division.
Yeah, they are.
I think they still got the division. I'm giving them the struggling South title. Yeah.
So, well, you want Jonathan Taylor, of course.
Yeah.
You probably want Michael Pittman on your team. What does Matt Ryan do for any of the other assets, though? Are there any other Colts you want to own that you didn't 2 weeks ago?
I was going to suggest Jack Doyle, but then I remembered he retired a couple of years ago.
Mo Alley Cox? Is that what we're doing? The jokes write themselves.
Mo Alley Cox, that's what I was trying to think of, but I said Gigantor earlier. That's what I was trying to think of people that were as tall as me.
Cox, Tay. That's the one. Cox.
That's the one. How could I forget about a Cox joke?
Yeah, mate. I'm actually a bit disappointed in you, mate.
Yeah, I might take a couple of minutes off. I'm sorry.
Look, fair enough. I think that can put the Matt Ryan talk to bed. You can't say Matt Ryan without also saying Carson Wentz because of that whole job swap where one gets fired and the other one picks it up. So,
do we have to?
Let's quickly talk about it because I think it changes some stuff in Washington. And look, Manjot, I'm going to kick it off with you on this one too, to say, well,
Good.
what's the difference here for Washington? They were meant to have Fitz last year, and I think we're actually pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
What's the feeling about the Commanders this year?
Yeah, literally name change, quarterback change yet again. All they had left was an owner change, which might be coming soon because Dan Snyder been
Please.
ripping off those NFL owners allegedly. Allegedly, he's been ripping off all those NFL owners, so there could be an ownership change. All that's left is a head coach change. But Ron Rivera, I got full respect.
Yeah,
That's
I've
the
got respect
one.
for him.
Yeah, Riverboat Ron, you can stay, man. The rest, everything else changes out there in the leadership section for Washington, it seems. So quarterback, new face of the franchise, Carson Wentz for the Commanders. Now, I'm actually giving props to the Washington Commanders. A bit of props. Firstly, actually, I'm going to give them an L for a bit because they actually gave the Eagles the win in that trade because they allowed your divisional rivals to look better than, just better. They just made their division rivals look better by absolutely, rating what the Colts assets were. They literally rated out those first round picks. They literally stole them out of nowhere for Carson Wentz. Push past Wentz, as I said, because he's always pushing the ball to opposing defensive linemen. All right, third time lucky on that.
Third time.
Yeah.
You get there, brother.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Yeah. So who's the opposing defensive lineman on the all right, see. All right. I'm stopping with these quotes. DeMarcus Lawrence, he might be just picking off passes. His interception total's going up. Dallas, I'm excited for Trayvon Diggs. His interceptions going up. For all those IDP players out there, including me, I'm getting in some IDP leagues this year, by the way. So IDP dynasty leagues, that's the full experience, guys. Yeah. So I'm gonna go all in on those Trayvon Diggs sort of numbers there. But I think, to be serious, 10-team fantasy football, I reckon Terry McLaurin's numbers will be a bit better. I think they'll be a bit better, not too much because it's Wentz, but Wentz is probably better than the Heineken beer, Taylor Heineke, of course. And
Great first name. Wonderful first name.
Yeah, a great first name and a great beer. Maybe. I don't know. I don't drink.
Yeah.
You guys gotta attest. You guys gotta test on my behalf. But where was I going with this? I think Gibson.
No one knows. It's Wentz. Who knows?
Yeah, it's Gibson was the next. It's the only other guy I could think of on that offense was Gibson, and I think Gibson's gonna go. He's gonna upgrade a bit. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's just gonna be slight upgrades.
I've got someone else to talk about that offense.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So first off, I hope there's not too much sun for Wentz because he's going to be the same color as the jersey, weird maroon, because he's just sunburnt the whole time. Second, Washington Kawankers. Anyone? I think that's pretty much the name. That's about as good as it's going to get.
That's what we'll call him.
Third, I agree with you. I do think he's. If there was such a small gap between Wentz and Matt Ryan, I don't even know how to explain the gap there is between Taylor Heineke, and Wentz. It's even smaller. It's slightly better, but I can't even explain why. It is a little bit better, but it's not great. So I will say that my calls about Curtis Samuel last year, I'm back in.
Oh yeah,
he's back in.
That guy was
Come on.
Didn't even get a chance to show anything last year. He was so injured. My whole point last year was that I made a very good call on Terry McLaurin last year. It was one of the best calls I made. I thought he was being completely overdrafted. I've always been a Terry McLaurin fan, but I couldn't understand why all of a sudden he was getting drafted at 10th, 11th, 12th wide receiver off the board. I did actually see him being pretty close to what he had done the year before, which was more like wide receiver 18, 19, 20 sort of range. And that's pretty much exactly where he fell. I agree with Manjot. I think there's a world where he's a little bit better, but I wouldn't be overdrafting him just because he's got Wentz over.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he was getting Fitzpatrick last year, which was the hope. And then he ended up with Heineken. Great first name, again, as we spoke about. But look, I just think Wentz is somewhere in between those guys. I don't think it's going to be anything more phenomenal. I just hope, if anything, Curtis Samuel might take something from him if he actually plays. Last year, his groin just destroyed him. Like, it's like he was Ron Jeremy just pumping girls every weekend and just destroyed his groin every single weekend. Like, I don't know what was going on there. I can't speak for it. Yeah, that's a great drop. But yeah, I don't know what was going on there. He just absolutely destroyed his pelvis, apparently. And I don't know what he was doing, but I would love to see him actually healthy this year. He gets a full preseason. I would give everyone a slight uptake in that Washington offense, but not much. Antonio Gibson, he would have had a massive uptake if JD McKissick wasn't there, and it looked like he wasn't going to. He was about to take the role with the Bills, and then all of a sudden they made it, which everyone was pretty surprised at, and he came straight back. So I don't see a better world for Gibson. Maybe slightly, because he did have a stress fracture in his leg pretty much the entire year. So you could probably say he might be slightly better, but if he doesn't get that third down role that McKissick takes, it just destroys his value a lot. And his ceiling is basically
just makes him touchdown.
His ceiling basically becomes like running back 10 to 12. It actually really sucks, because that's where everyone drafts him anyway. So it feels like you're drafting him close to his ceiling. So just in general, I don't think Wentz helps them enormously, but I don't think he hurts them either. I think it's just you pretty much draft everyone where you did last year.
Yeah, pretty well. I can't imagine that it does a lot for Gibson, and I sort of agree with Manjot too. Maybe it improves McLaurin a little bit, but if it didn't, I also wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to rush out to buy stock at any of them either. So I think that is probably,
and that's why you check draft price, because is it baked in? Like, do people think, like last year that I said to you, Matty, on the pod, everyone's baked in Fitzpatrick into his ADP, and he ended up going at wide receiver 12, and it was just way too high. But if you're thinking that he might take a little bit of a step forward and be like wide receiver 15 and he's getting drafted at wide receiver 20, then he's 100% value. So you just got to wait and see what the draft price is.
100%. No, that's great advice. Great advice. Another nugget from Taylor, by the way, after that nugget last time about the how to read Schefter's tweets.
Sorry, nuggets. Are we talking about Matt Ryan again? Or is that...
we're talking about nuggets, mate, chicken nuggets.
Okay.
Thank you, Taylor, by the way, for reminding me about Devo's brother, Curtis Samuel. Thank you for, because they might have the same role. Who knows what Washington does with Curtis? I don't think they put him in the same role. No way, because he's 10 kilograms, however many pounds lighter. I just did the research, and he's a little shorter. But Curtis is shorter and lighter than Debo, so I don't think they'd have the same role. But it's just fun to think about,
Well, the Panthers
Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel
in the People's Dynasty team. He's in the People's Dynasty team.
He's in the People's Dynasty team.
People.
You got to really emphasize the People's.
The People's. And we're going for back-to-back champs, baby.
That's right.
Yep.
I feel like I own a part of that team, mate. I'm in.
No, we're all in.
We're all in.
We're so all in.
Can I tell you something that really stunned me was to see Davante Adams end up at the Raiders. I mean, all of us were just like, well, Rodgers signed his deal. He's going to go back. And before we published, it all changed. And
oh, my gosh. Man, I can tell you where I was, Taylor, when you're asking. Yeah, I was actually exercising. So I was doing some stretches on the floor. And then everyone's sending me Davante Adams. So I had to stand up. I was walking around the house, just making the posts on the Instagram. I had it in all caps at the title. I didn't bother to do a photo edit because I just didn't have the time. I just wanted to get it out there. It's just the most shocking thing of 2022. Wait, how many things can you say that for though? Like, there was so many shocking things in that off season. And I think this was probably up there. I think I'd take this one as the one that shocked me the most because I got to see it live pretty much as someone who lives in Australia, of course. Like, it was hard to get those other news in our time zone. Whereas now we got our time zone, Eastern time, of course. We got it in good time zone for us. So
Yeah.
it was definitely one of the most shocking things. Yeah, Derek
Wow.
Carr's fantasy value skyrocketing, I
Yeah.
reckon. It's not gonna like fully, he's not gonna be like a full on like, starter, but he's gonna be like on the fringe of starter, I reckon. He's gonna be one of those like top 12-ish guys, somewhere around top 12. I reckon this is the year where people finally, it's gonna be like how Stafford, people finally started respecting Stafford once he left the Lions. Now you see Carl with a better wide receiver. I think people are going to start to respect him more. I think this is the respect Derek Carr's going to get. He's going to get a lot of respect. I think this might translate to his fantasy value as well. Slight decrease for my boy Hunter Renfrow. I really did enjoy. I enjoyed Hunter Renfrow's season last year. I know I know he was a Weddle answer a few days ago, and it took me 16 tries, which meant I had to retry it. I had to retry it to get him.
16. That's wild.
Yeah.
I got it in 4, by the way. I got it in 4.
Yeah.
Taylor wins again.
Taylor wins. So Taylor has better fantasy knowledge than me right there. But Mr.
Taylor
100
started Hunter
reception.
Renfrow in starts of the week a couple of times last year too, and it came up.
I did.
So bloody Taylor wins again.
Yeah. His
Not
boy
obnoxious
Hunter
at all.
Renfrow.
I can only go backwards, boys. I can only go backwards.
Bloody, or not, or you just keep on damn well winning. I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see.
This definitely eats into Jacobs and Waller as well. Some of their fantasy points, I think, will be taken, especially Waller. Like some of his pass volume is going to be taken. But I think this might also be beneficial on the football side for Waller because people are going to be targeting Adams a bit more now. Like defense is going to put their top CB, maybe put a safety over the top onto a guy like Devontae Adams. They're also going to be looking at Hunter Renfrow in the slot. And then you got Waller as well. So you got to account for all three of them. So it's going to be a little hard to predict which one's going to get the best fantasy value, which one's going to get the most catches and yards each game, I reckon. That's where it's going to be hard. So it's a guessing game. One of Russian roulette. You just got to spin that wheel, decide, the night before the game and just say, yep, here we go. I'm starting Adams.
Brian Edwards it is.
Yeah, Brian Edwards.
Taylor's been stocking up on Brian Edwards, haven't you, mate? You saw this coming and you're just going, you know what? Blanket on all those three. Brian Edwards it is.
If fantasy was in the last 4 minutes of a game, Brian Edwards would be dead set wide receiver number 1. Like he for some reason just finds a way at the end of games. Like he'll be one reception for 8 yards, and then all of a sudden, like Derek Carr goes, "Holy shit! I've got Brian Edwards. I forgot to actually pass that bloke for the first 3.5 quarters." And then he'll just start pizzling him for 4 or 5 when they're down. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing that they have. We're not going to have to worry about that anymore because that's what they had. So it's pretty much left for dead. Like Manjot said, it was funny. I believe that the Devontae news actually came out literally the day after we last recorded.
Yeah.
Because I know I was down the coast with work, and I was actually at a service station not far from my not far from where I was actually staying. And I remember just going and parking just for lunch and then seeing the news. And I was like, Manjot, I was in absolute shock. It's been so funny, right? This off season, do you know when you're in the regular season, right? And you kind of wake up expecting to see news. You're just something's going to happen. Like you're gonna wake up and see something to do with an injury. Like someone's got some injury or someone's not going to be playing that week in your fantasy team. And it got to a point where on the off season that you expected news every single morning. Like you were just you're going to wake up and any morning there wasn't some ridiculous trade. You were actually sad because you were like, it's just been absolute mayhem this entire time. And I think we'd only just got some of the there was some news just before Devontae Adams. I couldn't remember exactly what it was. And it seemed like it might have even been Amari Cooper, or there was news that he was possibly getting let go or whatever. And then that seemed like news at the time. And then Devontae Adams just came out of absolute nowhere. Like everyone just thought he was going back to the Packers. He'd mentioned that he didn't want to play under the franchise tag. So everyone knew he was disgruntled. but everyone just assumed it was going to get worked out and he was going to stay with Aaron Rodgers. And then all of a sudden, this huge trade happens that he's going over to the Raiders. It was just so random. Like, not one person would have mentioned that the Raiders were really like everyone. Some people might have said it was a chance in like free agency or something. But once he was, still there and been put on franchise tag, you just assumed he was going to be there. It was just an absolute nuts trade. Like, you just did not see it coming. But in terms of the actual fantasy value and everything, I think it's a downgrade for Adams himself. You can't tell me that him going to the Raiders, a lesser offense, a lesser quarterback, one that doesn't just throw directly to him in triple coverage every single time he can. You can't tell me that's not a downgrade. I'm not saying he's not one of the top 5 receivers in the league, because he 100% is. He still will be. But he has to contend with Renfro. He has to contend with Waller. Brian Edwards, apparently, we're going to talk about. But
look out for him.
I just think in general that offense isn't going to be as good. Now, I will say there is one thing that is in his favor, is that division seems like a downtick, but I think they're going to need to keep up. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in that division, and I think Carr's going to have to throw a lot. And I agree with your Josh Jacobs take. I think he's pretty much going to be around where he's drafted. He's going to have some decent games. He's going to have games where he's completely forgotten about because they're going to have to come back from behind. But I just think in general, they're actually going to have to throw a shitload because they have to keep up with Mahomes. They're going to have to keep up with Herbert. They're going to have to keep up with Wilson. They're going to have to keep up. So I actually think it's not a bad situation for him. I just think you have to temper your expectations compared to where he was in Green Bay, because he was the dude. He was the absolute dude.
Yeah.
And, you can't, and he was the dude for the MVP of the league. So it is a little bit of a downgrade, but in general, it's enormous for the Raiders. It's huge for them. That division's going to be so tight, and I think they're only going to get better from this. And I'm really interested to see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of being made about the Carr and Davante Adams connection from Fresno State. And I saw videos left and right of these bomb passes to Davante Adams. Now, that's not Davante's role in the NFL. He's not the 40 yards downfield bomb catch and then 30 more yards to the end zone. So watching those videos, I kind of thought, I'm kind of watching boys, just get beaten up by 2 men. That's not how it's going to be over in Las Vegas. It's not going to be Carr throwing 70-yard rainbows. So that's where I think it's got to be a bit of a downgrade for Davante Adams. He's going to be working space. He will get longer passes, but man, if there's a 15-yard pass or a 20-yard pass, and then he has to do something a little extra to get some more yards, I think that's what we're going to see. And he's going to be he and Waller. Which one do you cover? The other one's getting the touchdown. I kind of feel like that's what we're going to see there. And I think you've got to be realistic about it.
Can I make a little bit of an early prediction for fantasy in terms of what you should do in drafts?
We saw this. Do you think it'd be helpful?
we sort of saw this last year, and I talked on our podcast a few times. I think we're seeing more and more about drafting in the middle in terms of quarterbacks. You and I have often been proponents of drafting early or late in the tight end position, and we always used to say the same for quarterback. I'm actually the complete opposite in quarterback now. I actually think that there's huge value in the middle in quarterback at the moment. There are some guys that are really, really sort of, thickening up that middle that I think a guy like Derek Carr, Tua even, got Matthew Stafford's probably going to get drafted like 8th or 9th in terms of quarterbacks. I think that middle is actually going to be where you really want to draft quarterbacks in fantasy this year. Because I think there's going to be huge value in them, because I think some guys at the top are going to get overdrafted. Josh Allen's, pretty much gets you the value every year, but I think some guys like Kyler, Pat Mahomes, I think has question marks this year without Tyreek, but is still going to go high. Dak's probably still going to go ahead of those guys. I think they've all got question marks, whereas guys like that, I think are going to show you the most value. So I think drafting in those 6th, 7th, 8th rounds in the quarterback position is actually going to be really, really fruitful this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm waiting for those guys who overdraft on Jalen Hurts at this point. Just listening to that, I was literally thinking of Jalen Hurts. Everyone's been overhyping him. Whereas I'd rather a guy like Derek Carr, who has more weapons around him, who has probably a better offensive line to an extent. They're around the same offensive line. I'd rather him have more consistent production than have a big Hurts game with his rushing and everything.
Yeah.
That's just how I see it, to be honest.
If Jalen Hurts goes before all those guys I mentioned, I would definitely take the others. I'd take the last person in that run. Like if you're sitting there with Jalen Hurts, Stafford, Tua, Carr, I would take whoever's last. I would take whoever's last on the board out of those four.
I cannot wait to do the too early ranking show because already my brain's going, all right, well, let's list off the top 10 quarterbacks and just go, am I happy being the 10th guy? I probably am.
Yep.
And I think that's something we have to come back to on another day to do because I think that's going to be a great subject for us to break down.
It's one of those things. I don't think we should wait to the end, though. I think the middle was perfect. Like, I don't want to be going below that, even though that is pretty low. I mean, that's probably around 10 to 12 in terms of like quarterback rankings.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to be going too much lower than that. But I think that's the sort of perfect position I'll be looking at.
I just don't know how you're going to end up with a bad fantasy quarterback in a 10 team like this year. I just don't know what you got to do wrong.
Nah,
You get a guy who has an injury, but even then, if we've got 12 great options, unless people are just hoarding the shite out of running backs, there's still going to be, out of quarterbacks, there's still going to be options available, I think, just because of the depth of the position now.
The average ones got better, and the top ones stayed roughly the same.
Well, and I think some of the top ones are taking a ding, and we'll talk about some of that with our next wide receiver.
They're slightly worse, but you still wouldn't drop them considerably. So, there's so much value in the middle guys, I think, this year.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah. We are about to dive into one of the, this was another moment which shook my brain. I think we should take a break and then come back and we'll set this up on a tee.
Tyreek. I need some charge time too.
All right. Yeah. We'll be back with it.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Taylor talk time.
Oh, I'd gladly never meet Maddie again. Oh, I agree.
that hurts here and
sorry. Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, I realize I've got to get the trophy off you, so I take that back.
Yes. Then you can shut me out of your life forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Joe, let's stop the foreskinning. Let's stop the foreskinning for some absolutely wonderful segments later. And someone just pegs a dildo. Yes. It was a better pass than Mac Jones did all day. Oh, look at all the penalties we had against us. It means the refs screwed us. That contract's as tight as a nun's you know what, mate. So you can't get out of this bad boy. Someone get me an adult nappy because I am moist.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
That's why we're on the podcast together, mate. We take shots at each other. Well done, Taylor. I'm not below shameless self-promotion.
All right, let's get straight back into this one because this is one that really rocked my socks. And I was talking to Manjot about this earlier. You know, for folks who wait for us to come to air to talk about what goes on in the NFL, there's a whole world of people who think that Tyreek Hill is a chief. And I just think that's a wild world to live in because it seems so old that Tyreek Hill was a chief. But I still am coming to terms with the idea that he's not. I'm going to handball this one to Manjot to kick off with too, with Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins. Talk me through it, brother. What do you think's going on here?
Wait up. He's going from red to aqua. That's absolute insanity. When I saw that trade, I was just like, where did this come from? Where did that come from? Literally, how did they get Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins? They literally cashed in 5 picks. The Chiefs were like, all right, we're going to raid the cupboard bare. We're going to get all the picks you want to give. We'll take it. You guys give Tyreek the money he wants. You know, I think this is good for Tyreek. Well, not good. I think this is a downgrade for Tyreek, actually. Tua is not an upgrade over Mahomes. Mahomes is a better player.
Are you
sure?
This is
gonna be...
Are you sure? I mean, you're out on a limb.
All right. I'm getting blasted for the take,
mate.
I got to.
We're going to submit you to a mental health check or a drug test or something in a minute.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah,
this is unbelievable.
My mental health care plan needs to be placed in. I'm
concerned about you. It's coming from a place of concern.
This is why people tune in for the hot takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tua ain't as good as Mahomes, so yeah, I'm just saying.
Taylor's mad about that for starters. He'll explain in a minute. But yeah,
I think this is good for Tua. It's not as good for Tyreek, but Tua is going to be great. I know he's on the people's team, Taylor. I know he's on the people's team. That's where you're going to get it.
Both of them are.
Yep. I'm sorry for ruining that surprise for the viewers, but man, I'm gonna see Tua's value skyrocket though. I think if he can develop a deep ball, he has a deep ball in him. People they just haven't used it. Like they haven't used it properly. They haven't schemed the right plays, and he's always throwing to like double, triple coverage somehow. He's always picking off, like getting picked off. He's always finding the defender instead of his receiver for some reason. But I think he can change that. It's a new offense with Mike McDaniel. They'll be running the ball a bit, but there's also going to be some like short to middle sort of pass game. And I think where Tyreek's going to be valuable is he's going to get more catches instead of yards. So they're going to scheme him in a way that he's not going to get as many yards, because in KC, he was just getting chunk plays. Like he's at least getting 15 plus yards of play most plays. Like the pass was air yards. In air yards, it would be like 10 to 15 yards plus. At least Mahomes would have to throw that. Whereas in this offense, you could have like screens, Tyreek. You got like quick slants. Just get the ball to him quickly. Just get a quick dump off. And then you let Tyreek use his speed to run around the defenders. He gets that yards after catch, and that's where he's going to be more valuable. You're going to have to force feed him them targets. And then he's just going to have to get the yards. Instead of the yards being air yards, it's going to be yards after the catch. So in a way, it's not going to be as flashy, but it's going to be more sort of a Debo sort of thing. But as in like Debo after the catch, not as in like the Debo running around sort of thing. You can see more motion though. Tyreek always goes in motion in that KC offense. He's going to go in motion in the Miami offense too. But you're not going to see the running back thing. Not that much, because they still got like they got like Edmonds and stuff. But yeah,
I like the idea that you do this. You're like, all right, so I'm going to compare everyone in the league to the standard wide receiver, and the standard amazing gadget of everything Swiss Army knife wide receiver is Deebo Samuel. So he's the baseline. We can compare every receiver in the world to Deebo Samuel. I love that you do that. Tori, he's kind of like the new Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, not to foreshadow, but we got some Deebo Samuel.
Foreskin.
Yeah,
No foreskinning yet.
Look, my mom's in the room, so I can't say anything. I can't say anything.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, the headphones are on. Headphones are on, guys. Headphones on.
She would hate this show, by the way. She's so good at it's good of her to let you near us, to be honest.
Yes. Yes, it is.
A gift.
But a Deebo sort of thing will come up at the end of the show, towards the end somewhere. I'll fit it in.
So you've got to have a take about this, because the People's Dynasty team has all of a sudden found itself dolphin friendly, dolphin safe. Tell us about it, mate.
Look, eat it, Mark Downey. I'm all Dolphins this year, mate. And you're going to have to make room, or make a lot of room, because I'm not the smallest bloke in the world, on that bandwagon, because it's Dolphin time, baby. That's probably a seal, but I'm going to
Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, that was Ricky
Number one.
Jones. That was that one.
Yeah.
Ricky Dolphin Jones. I think that's all we know him as.
My youngest daughter does actually a really great dolphin, but it also sounds like her unicorn. So apparently they make the same sound as this sound.
I'll touch on something Manjot said pretty quickly there. I think what he was trying to say as well is that I think Tyreek's going to be very good in 4 PPR in fantasy this year. I think he's going to be more known for his receptions than he is his yards, and probably even touchdowns.
Wow.
He's going to be way more involved in probably closer proximity to the quarterback than he ever was with Mahomes. And I'm just going to say, like, if you were a coach and you were trying to take a Shanahan offense, could you honestly pick 2 better people to have than Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? Like, it's absolutely phenomenal. They're going to be able to run so many different motions. They're going to be able to run both of those guys like they're Deebo Samuel. I'm not saying they are Deebo Samuel, but they're going to be able to run a lot of different looks. And, I've never been a huge Mike Gesicki fan, but I think even him coming back, he's pretty athletic for a tight end. And I just think they're going to be able to do a lot. They're going to be so much more athletic than teams that they're facing that I just can't see that not working. So, and I brought up a few different times when we did play starts of the week. Tua actually was very, very good in terms of yardage. Like he
he didn't really have the offense to get a lot of touchdowns, but he had a lot of games where he had high yardage totals. So I actually think this whole thing about him not being able to facilitate a guy like Tyreek Hill is probably not the right, way to go. I actually think he's definitely going to be. I'm not going to say he's not going to have some issues. He's not going to have some growing pains having a guy like Tyreek Hill. He's probably going to have his interceptions, as most people who aren't Pat Mahomes probably will. But I just think in general it's going to work. I don't think Tyreek Hill's as good a fantasy asset as he was on the Chiefs. I'm sorry to break that to you, but he just isn't. Like it's similar to Devontae Adams. You're not with Pat Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers anymore. You're with Tua and you're with Derek Carr. They're definitely a downgrade, and it's a downgrade in offense. But I'm telling you right now, this offense is going to be far better than it was last year in Miami. And I just think Tyreek and Jalen are both going to be huge parts of it. And I just think it's going to be far better than last year. And Tyreek Hill's going to he might not have, as many touchdowns as he did last year, but he's going to have a huge amount of receptions. And he's going to be very, very prominent on that offense. I would still pick him around the top 5. I would probably have him on the lower end of the top 5, probably more around 4, 5, 6. But I think he's still going to be very prominent.
I'm getting a very Jarvis Landry at the Dolphins feel about this, of just being a target monster. And do you remember that one year where all of a sudden he started getting touchdowns too? It wasn't just the receptions and the yardage. Then he started getting some touchdowns. It was the Jay Cutler year at the Dolphins. So I don't know. I think
it's going to be Landry, but with far more yards after the catch, like Manjot mentioned. Like there's so much more big playability after the catch than you saw out of, Landry had a fantastic year. Like you aren't actually trying to downplay Hill when you're saying that, because he actually had a really good year that year. But I'm just trying to say that there's a lot of potential for both of those guys, and we've seen plenty of teams facilitate 2 top 10, top 15 sort of wide receivers. I think both of these guys can be top 10.
Any final thoughts here, Manjot?
One more thought. Yeah, it's make or break for Tua.
Absolutely.
This is his last year. This is his last year to prove himself. If he doesn't get it done, if they don't make playoffs this year, Tua's got to go. I'm saying playoffs because it has to be. They've been on the cusp of playoffs for the last 2 years. They've been literally like 2020, they were like percentage out, like I guess point different. It was tiebreakers.
Yeah, a few tiebreakers.
Yeah, there was a few tiebreakers in there that they were out. I think it was conference record that shut them out of playoffs. 2021, they started slow and then they came back hot. So now it's up to them to actually be consistent, play consistently, win games consistently, and Tua has to be at the front of that. He cannot be a passenger. He has to be the leader in this offense. And my
dynasty trades aside, I'm telling you right now, I'm all in. I'm on Tua. I'm on that wagon. You can again at me whatever you want to do when he's going shit, but I'm telling you right now, I'm on it. I actually think he's going to be phenomenal with these guys. I actually think he's been seen too lowly for what he's actually produced so far. I think he hasn't exactly been put in the right positions to win so far. And I think his yardage totals have actually been far better than anyone's ever seen, anyone's actually giving him credit for. I'm not saying he hasn't had his issues like that. It's pretty clear that he has, but I'm saying that I'm all in on him. I actually think that he is going to prove it this year. And I completely agree with Manjot. I think he has to prove it this year or he's done. And I'm just saying I'm just saying on the podcast right now that I'm in on him. I think he's going to do it.
So Taylor touting Tua. That's how I've got it written down now. So I know that might be the catchphrase. While this is going on, Taylor is just into the chat function here, being like, breaking news. Hey, you got to hit us with this breaking news. Something's come up.
Break it.
Just came through. Stephon Diggs signed a 4-year extension. Came up as 104 mil. We all know that that's probably bullshit. It's probably just like half of that in terms of like guaranteed money, but he's got a fair bit guaranteed anyway. It's down as four for 104. He's signed on for long term.
I'll fill you in. It's 70 million guaranteed.
70. Yeah. That sounds about right.
I've got the post on Instagram ready. So straight after the recording, it's going up. It's going up on Pastry Press NFL.
which pretty much means it's more like 3 years for 70, like with the option to pay the extra 34 out in the last year. But it doesn't really matter.
Wow.
It just proves that they're all in on him.
They're all in?
You know, it was such a weird year for Stephon last year. Like everyone had these huge expectations because he was wide receiver 2 years ago.
He led the league in receptions. Yeah,
it was insane. And last year, I think he still was top 10. Like he still had a really, really good year. It was just the fact that there was a bit of a drop off.
Ask anyone who owned him if they thought he was a top 10 receiver last year in fantasy,
exactly.
though. I mean, God, it was a tough ride.
I took him. I did a trade in that dynasty league we talked about, which essentially was, when you look after the draft, was basically me giving up Najee Harris for Diggs and Elijah Moore. So at the time, it actually felt gross because Najee, especially in that first half of the year, was dominating, and he's a rookie. And you're like, oh my God, I've given up this ridiculous piece. And then he gets to the end of the year, Najee slows down. You look at Diggs' numbers and the fact that Elijah Moore's coming on through like an absolute, house on fire. You're like, you know what? It actually wasn't that bad a trade. It just felt absolutely gross as it was happening. So, and that was just a fantasy look on it. And just in terms of the Bills, it was just smart because they'd sort of got rid of some other guys, like Cole Beasley's not there anymore. They've sort of cleaned house a little bit in the wide receiver room. So it made sense that they just sort of found one main guy and just sort of paid him. And, why wouldn't you? Because he's been so good for them over the last couple of years.
Wow.
Yep.
Love it.
I'm looking at a Bills receiver right now, other than Diggs. I think Gabriel Davis will take a huge leap this year.
Yep.
I saw a lot in the playoffs. I'm always rating up receivers when they're playing 4 against the Bills in the playoffs. I had the Michael Pittman thing last year, but I was like, Michael Pittman's going to break out in 2021, and he had a good year. So I'm going all in on the Gabriel Davis hype.
Davis,
I think he'll be a great wide receiver too. There'll be like an Evans Godwin style thing where it's like, 2 wide receivers that are really good. I think Davis will be up there. I think he'll get a 1K season, to be honest. That's what I'm seeing it. I'm all in on the bandwagon.
Just from what I saw
Is that because he had 100 touchdowns in the playoffs, or is that maybe
pretty much.
Pretty much all of them. Every single
pretty much.
one.
If they scheme out,
I think it was 102 touchdowns.
102 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Against the Chiefs in that one.
Yeah. All in one game. They still.
And 299 million yards. No, 11 billion yards.
I reckon that's enough. It was way more.
Bloody unbelievable. Look, this came up a little bit earlier. There was foreskin everywhere on this one. Amari Cooper.
Flapping in the wind.
He's got foreskin hanging off his helmet. Anywhere you can find space for foreskin. We're doing our best to tap dance around talking about him earlier, but now is the time. So he winds up leaving Dallas. Tay, do you want to walk us through the Amari Cooper experience in the trade cycle? Gosh, unreal.
Yeah, so AC, the second best AC that I know, behind Antonius Cleveland from the Wollongong Sorry, the Illawarra Hawks. What am I doing? They're back and forth between Illawarra and Wollongong. They can't make up their mind. But Antonius Cleveland, let's just do a whole podcast on that guy. Absolutely love him. Would bought him. Just
stay tuned for the Antonius Cleveland podcast after this, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah, straight after. But on to, a lesser known player. I guess he's on a little bit more money, probably a little bit more known in the world. Amari Cooper. Yeah, it's a really good situation. And, I sort of touched on it with Deshaun Watson. They really haven't had a player like this in the last few years. Like they had Odell, but he really just didn't gel with the team. And I just think Amari Cooper, they tried to act like in Dallas that he was sort of done, and he definitely wasn't. Like every single time you saw him with anyone but Dak, like it's Cooper, Buddy Rush would Buddy throw for him for 150 yards, like when he would come in the game. Like he clearly isn't done. He's a fantastic player. He's got great separation. He's huge. Like he gets up, he gets high jump balls. Like he's just a phenomenal athlete. Like he's always tested just through the roof in that sort of stuff, like being a ridiculous athlete. I just think he's going to help this team. Like they needed an athlete like that to sort of take away the stigma that this team only runs the ball. I think they definitely will run the ball in that first half of the year, obviously without Deshaun, but as soon as Deshaun gets there, as soon as they fine tune things between Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson, I'm not saying it happens straight away. It's probably going to take a few weeks. But I think that's going to be a phenomenal sort of asset for them, because teams are going to struggle to defend them because they're not going to know whether to defend Chubb and Hunt or whether they're going to defend Watson and Amari Cooper. It's going to be really, really hard to defend them, because you've always had this one faceted offense that you can sort of, you could stack the box against Hunt and Chubb. You're not going to be able to do that against these guys when they're the full. Yeah, you try to, it still doesn't work. But how do you possibly do that when they do a play action or something like that, and all of a sudden Murray Cooper's open downfield and Deshaun Watson's buddy flinging it down to him? It's going to be incredibly hard to stop. And a lot of teams have sort of almost been happy to just let the Browns score 14 to 17 points and just score enough on their defense. But if this team can put up 24, 27 points with their defense, they're going to be really, really tough to stop. So I'm not saying that happens straight away, because there's going to be some growing pains with Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper together. But I think Amari Cooper is going to really, really help this team immensely. And I think they're going to be a team to watch in the second half of the year.
Well, man, John, I need to hear what you got to say about it too, because being a real numbers guy, Cooper just had such an odd year last year. What do you see it doing for Cooper's production?
Yeah, I mean, he wears number 19. First off, he wears
the lesser number 19.
Shout out number 19.
Yeah, the Devo drip all coming tonight. More later. But anyway, look, Amari Cooper, he's an absolute stud. He's been so consistent over his career. Started off the Raiders with Derek Carr, then went to Dak Prescott. Now he's got Deshaun. I think he's upgraded quarterbacks every time, and his players increased every time. Assuming Deshaun can play, of course, as we covered earlier. I think Amari has been very slept on. I think I'm gonna be honest here. Even I'm not at face value. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, his career is gonna die like Odell's was. His career is going on a downhill. But the more I just remember how good he's been, that's where I'm seeing his value. And I think a lot of people are seeing it as he's going to get forgotten in the shuffle. That's where he's going to be. There's a lot of guys at wide receiver you're going to think about. You're going to think about Kupp. You're going to think about Adams. You're going to think about Devo, of course. You're going to think about Jefferson and Chase. There's Diggs. There's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. There's so many wide receivers you think of. And this dude's going to be somewhere in that, wide receiver 13, wide receiver 15. He's going to be in that top 15 somewhere, and he's going to be lost in the shuffle. And people are going to forget about him. And he's just going to land in some championship winning owner's lap in some leagues.
You mean
the
People's Dynasty team? That's where he sits.
That's where he is. Yeah,
Vinegar Strokes? Are we talking about
the smart ones?
Yeah. Vinegar Strokes.
I'm just saying. I'm saying the smart ones, like the Vinegar Strokes.
Of course, smart people. We don't want to name names. Just someone that might have Vinegar Strokes as his name. Could be anyone.
Unlikely to be the Carabao Kings. We'll put it that way.
Sorry, what's that team name?
I've never heard of them. Never heard of it.
No. Some old dynasty back in the day.
They got cancelled, I think. Yeah, that's
absolutely cancelled.
They're naming my own team.
There's some drama in Carabao. We shall
You're talking about the arse plan?
There is never not drama in Carabao, let me say.
You're talking about the glory holes?
Oh God, yes. That's in Gary though, I think. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing all the logos for that and letting let the good people help me choose my team for the Astro League this coming year. After 12 years of Carabao Kings, gosh.
Yeah. Just watch him get slapped on, guys. Watch Amari Cooper get slapped on.
Cooper, yeah. I mean, so he's
We're going to forget about him
receiver 2 in a 10-team fantasy league at the moment. For
he's perfect as that, because I still think he's going to prove to you in the second half of the year, and he could be a title winner, like Manjot mentioned. So if you had him as your wide receiver 2, it's perfect, because you could slide someone else in that you maybe took a bit of a shot on
into your wide receiver 2 and then maybe play to Murray as your flex or something like that, just to see what was happening. Even if he had to hit you, even in a 10-team league, if he had to hit your bench at one stage, or if it's not working with, Jacoby Brissett, you can just sit him there and then just sort of wait it out, and then he could be a league winner for you.
Yeah,
so he's worth
you just roll out Gabe Davis, mate. No worries.
Yeah, exactly. Gabe Davis, 102 touchdowns in a game.
Johnson,
so,
he knows. Man knows.
Yeah, I know.
I'm selling the Gabe Davis stock with you, brother.
Selling the candy. Selling
it all, man. I want to hear you talk about selling Robert Woods, the new number 2.
Yeah. Bobby Trees, baby. Bobby Trees.
So he's the second guy to wear number 2 in as many years, and we know the last guy was stellar. So he's got big shoes.
And this guy cost a little bit less. Was a 6 under or something like that. We basically got him for nothing. So
stole him.
It was weird. I was pretty happy when we got Julio last year because it was a bit of an unknown. You had those hopes that he would be what he was. There wasn't the assumption that he was, but he also wasn't getting ridiculous amount of offers. So you kind of had to temper your expectations on him as well. And he just could not stop getting injured. Like I said, just like hamstrings made of asshole paper. Like they were just tearing at any moment. Like I think he got injured like 9,000. I think he got injured more times than Gabe Davis had touchdowns in that game. Like it was just unbelievable, and that's a lot. That's over 102 times.
Gabe Davis to Julio ratio.
Yeah. Gabe Davis touchdowns and Julio injuries. They were just neck and neck, going on there.
Yeah, they're always equal. It's a balance. That's how you know the world is balanced.
And to be honest, that makes it less worrying taking a shot on a guy coming off an ACL tear like Robert Woods, because I actually think he works perfect in this offense because you want a high volume guy like Robert Woods. I know he's going to take a little bit of time just off the ACL tear, but we're having a guy like AJ Brown, which I've came on this podcast a million times and said he's very, very rocks and diamonds. Like he can have an absolute game-winning performance, and the next week he's 2 for 20. Like he's just not the guy that you can really rely on every single game. You want a guy like Robert Woods out there getting 8 for 45, 8 for 55, 9 for 50. You want a guy getting a lot of receptions in this offense because it only helps Tannehill. And Tannehill needs all the help he can get, put it that way. So in this offense, anything helps, especially a volume receiver when you've got a guy like Derrick Henry taking up a lot of it anyway. So if you've just got someone that can move the chains like Robert Woods, I'm absolutely phenomenal. I don't see Robert Woods having some huge touchdown year. I think it's definitely a drop down for him fantasy. There's no way that it's a better situation at the Titans than it was the Rams. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I think he's like Manjot said with Murray. I think he's going to get overlooked even worse. Like he's going to be like wide receiver 30 something. Like he's going to be left for absolute dead. And I think he's going to be an interesting pick. He wouldn't be someone I'd want to be starting week 1. I'd want to know a bit more about how he's sort of rehabbing in the ACL, but I just think it's a very, very good move by the Titans. They needed someone. They got someone for nothing pretty much, and someone who is incredibly, he fits that offense perfectly as a volume receiver. So I'm really, really happy they've got him because I think he's a perfect pairing next to AJ Brown. And, there's going to be a healthy dose of running the ball from the Titans like you've always seen.
We've pretty got a good running back or something.
Oh, yeah, apparently some guy. I've never heard of him.
Is he Jonathan Taylor? Is that...
No. He could probably throw Jonathan Taylor into another fucking universe. That's pretty much how big he is.
Marshawn Lynch. Got it.
Yeah, beast mode. Yeah, beast mode. And
I'd never heard of the Titans having a good running back before, so I didn't know.
Yeah, no. We've normally got someone pretty shit there. But
Antonio Andrews. Back to that. Antonio Andrews.
My NFL history brain is absolutely going off.
I know you're I can hear him.
I know, but
it's almost like I'm being sarcastic. It's almost like a little bit of sarcasm in my voice.
It is.
But in general, we've got a phenomenal
taking shots.
We've got a phenomenal coach. We're going to have a huge amount of running in our game.
We've got a very good defensive line, and we've brought back basically everyone. We've spent a lot of money on bringing back what worked last year. So I'm pretty happy. We didn't make any huge moves in terms of getting enormously better, but we basically brought back everything that worked last year. And then I think Robert Woods is that little bit of, something that can sort of tip it over the edge.
Sprinkle on a little icing.
It's a little bit,
The
it's
X
a
a
little
little
bit of a risk.
dusting.
It's a little bit of a risk because of his injury, but it costs us nothing. So it's just something that I think needed to be done. And it's not really at a huge cost to us. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it works, but tighten up, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear an unbiased opinion, Manjot.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
so
that was a
Robert
good. That was a
Woods
good
is
bias.
shit house.
No, I'm actually full on. I'm full on this bandwagon with Taylor. Bobby Trees,
Okay.
man. Yeah, Bobby Trees, tighten up.
Bobby
I'm
Trees.
absolutely on this
Wow.
bandwagon. I really like this one. As Taylor said, high volume guy. You can definitely see him as a good flex player in fantasy. Look at me go being a fantasy analyst.
Oh,
right?
look at this guy.
Yeah.
We're rubbing
Yeah,
off on him.
he's
Dart
getting
throw wide
sle-
receiver.
He's getting slept on. I'm certain he's getting slept on.
Who's the
He's-
biggest slept on
He'll-
player though? Is it going to be Amari Cooper or Robert Woods? Who do you think is going to make people pay for sleeping on him the most?
Oh, it's tough. All right, I actually did a
Make a
mock
call. We'll
draft
make
with
him the
a few
official wide
pages.
receiver. The
Yeah,
Woods
I
is
did a
way
mock
lower.
draft.
dart throw wide
Yeah.
Woods
receiver.
is way lower.
Exactly.
Woods will
Yeah.
be far lower than what his projection should be. But I think Amari Cooper will be the one that can win you a title. As in,
Yeah.
I would rather pick the guy at 16 that should be 8 than pick the guy that's 30. That you're picking up at 30 that should be 22, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd rather pick up the guy with huge upside.
All right. So your ceiling on Woods is just far lower. Just
Yeah. There's no way ceiling's anywhere near what it was at the Rams, but I just think in terms of a pickup for the Titans, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So
all right.
I was just saying that I was doing a mock draft with a few other pages. Thanks to Maddie for inviting me in there.
representing
Yeah.
us in a big
I was
mock
representing
draft.
us. Yeah, so Amari went at, it says the 12th team. He was the 7th pick in the 3rd round. So if you do the math, that's like the 41st pick or something.
Yeah.
He was a
41,
Yeah.
Dirk.
yeah, he was.
I'll
No,
send
it was
myself out.
actually
Universal constant.
24 plus. It was actually 24 plus 7, 31. Sorry, my bad.
31.
There we go. Yeah, and Robert Woods' first pick of the 8th round. He was the 85th overall.
Wow.
That's where we were projecting him. So that's how big of a drop off. That is a 50 pick drop off right there. Approximately, according to all these fantasy analysis I
5
was
rounds.
being with.
That's a big drop.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a massive drop. So I reckon Amari,
See how that
yeah,
evolves.
I've got to agree. Amari would be the better player.
All
Definitely.
right. So we'll see how that evolves, though, because we're still a long way away from draft season for that. There's a lot that has to happen, but I think we put a pin in that one because it would be cool to have a bit of a dart throw wide receiver that we can all agree and we can just all cheer for no matter what happens, and especially if it's a Titan, right, Taylor? That
Of
adds
course.
to it.
Yeah. No bias.
There's only one more trade I wanted to have a quick look at here, and we probably don't even need to spend all that much time on it because it really is the pieces that came the other way from the Russell Wilson trade, which we see Drew Lock, who is an experience all of his own, and Noah Fant, which I actually thought was the more compelling part of the trade, going to the Seahawks. Manjot, you're the NFC West guy. Are you quaking in your boots about what Seattle are serving you up now?
No, I'm not.
No.
Not really. I mean, they'll still find a
What?
way. They'll still find a way to half-ass and beat us twice a year, every year, for the rest of my life, because that's what always happens when Seattle plays the 49ers. Yeah. So I'm
So they got
prepared to
2-15.
lose. Yeah, I'm prepared to lose to Drew Lock and Noah Fant in real life. So yeah, Noah Fant, a Weddle answer from last week as well. Obviously, I'm mentioning all
Wow,
my boys
yes.
in Weddle.
That was the game I
Yeah.
played, and it took me all my guesses because for the first 5, I actually had no idea what to do with the feedback every time it gave me a
Yeah.
series of oranges and greens. You'll see that on the show before the show if you haven't had a look.
Yeah,
at that
and that'll be
enough playing Weddle.
edited after. Would that be edited after or edited before?
Man,
Would
I
you
think
say?
it'll be its own little feature? I think we'll release it as its own little short. I think a little 10
Oh, yeah.
little taster. What do you reckon?
Yeah. That'll be good.
Maybe
that'll
we
be
can get
good.
it
Put
up
it on
in
the
the lead
YouTube.
up to this show coming out.
Yeah, get it on the YouTube.
Yeah.
And
good idea. We'll try and get it out tomorrow.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Weddle's crazy. Anyway, Fan and Locke, they're still there together. I feel bad for Noah Fan. He went from a decent team around him with Locke to like a shit team around him with Locke.
With
It's
Locke.
literally, yeah, he's still with Locke. That's the thing. He's just gone to a worse team, which might actually mean he gets a higher volume. So for his owners, yeah, for his fantasy owners, you better be praying for someone like Baker Mayfield to go. That's better. Or Malik Willis, just hope for like a rookie quarterback to just force feed. Drew Lock is decent, but he's not going to get the job done compared to those guys, to be honest.
You've got to hope for Baker Mayfield. Like that is
over Drew Lock. Over Drew Lock.
That's a bad situation.
Yeah, it's just absolute trash.
Are you in the same boat there, Taylor? Gee, if you're a Seahawks fan, you better hope for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, so I don't think
Drew
Drew Lock
survive if we're no offense owners in Dynasty.
I don't think Drew Lock means dick. Like I just think that was just part of that trade. I will say I actually am a little bit interested in Fant. I actually saw a lot in that offense that sort of showed that they used the tight end position. You saw Gerald Everett actually get a ridiculous amount of targets in that offense last year as a tight end. So I actually think he actually might be a sneaky play at tight end because, like, honestly, that position is just absolute horse dick. So it doesn't really matter, like, who you're playing there anyway. I just think he actually might be an unsung hero in this trade. I think he actually could show more than people actually think because they're going to run the same sort of offense anyway. But in terms of the quarterback position, again, I don't think Lock's going to matter. They'll be probably a player in the quarterback market this year. Maybe, I don't know. They might decide that it's not the right class for him. I'm not sure. Like you said, Malik Willis sort of fits the mold there. He seems to have a pretty he has a good deep ball, but he seems to be pretty pedestrian in the middle. And he's really good at fantasy asset, but I'm not sure he's really ready for the big time. He sort of seems more Trey Lancey, like he's almost kind of not ready in terms of hitting the right people where they need to be hit, unless they're like 80 yards down the field. And like they kind of need something in the middle there. So they may just sort of go to Lock for a little while and then have someone like as a bridge, sort of a bridge quarterback, and then wait for someone like that. But I don't know if that'll be this year or if they'll wait till next year. I don't think Lock's going to mean too much. I will say Lock is as bad as a quarterback as he's been. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He actually wasn't too bad in terms of hitting receivers deep. Like he actually wasn't too bad. Like Judy actually had some of his better numbers with Lock like 2 seasons ago at the end. He actually was able to sort of find him deep. So it's probably not the worst for someone like Metcalf if he doesn't get traded. I don't actually think Lock and Metcalf will be the worst sort of setup that you've ever seen. I'm not saying that it won't turn into 3 interceptions a game, but honestly, as a Metcalf owner, I don't think you really give a shit if there's interceptions. Like you just want to see him getting deep targets as much as possible. And you didn't get it from Russ really much last year. And then if anything, he was better with Geno. And for all we know, Geno will be back as well. Like we don't really know what's going on with their quarterback position. So, look, I just think in general, like Lock's not going to matter too much. He's not going to take them to the promised land or make them too much better. I think Fan will be a bit better than people expect, but in the end, he's a tight end. So it doesn't really mean too much. It's just someone you can pick pretty much near the end of the draft that sort of fills a gap. But yeah, I don't see Seattle making much noise this year.
Fair enough. Sorry, Manjot, you were on the edge of your seat about to say something there.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing.
You got nothing. You had a Debo thing you wanted to tell us about because we're about 3 minutes from wrap here, and I need to hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah. So I got a Debo skit to end it. All right, I've been hearing. All right, ever since I got the Debo jersey, for all the fans, I promised you all during our postseason show, I joined the show and I immediately said I get some Debo t-shirt or jersey. Like the jerseys cost $300. Yeah. Right. Nowadays, 49ers men's size jerseys cost $300. I do not know why. There's some shortage of fabric or some shit. But anyway, the point being is, ever since I got this Debo t-shirt, y'all been making trade rumors about Debo Samuel. I heard the Dolphins before Tyreek, of course. The Dolphins wanted him because of that Mike McDaniel connection.
Put him in a body bag, man, Jot. Put him in a body bag.
And then the Jets, man. I heard last week the Jets, out of all teams, wanted to trade for Deebo Samuel, man. Look, I've a message. Look, in the words of Will Smith, keep Deebo's name. Yeah, keep Deebo's name out your fucking mouth. Keep Deebo's name out of your fucking mouth. I'm sorry, man. Look, my auntie invested enough money in this T-shirt. Please don't let it go to waste. Don't do anything stupid. Keep Deebo. Give him the blank check and just sign him in July, please. Just get it done.
And to quote the great Dave Chappelle, what did the four fingers say to the face? Slap.
That's what I'm doing on draft night. If I see Roger Goodell on TV announce a Deebo trade, I will be slapping my TV where Roger Goodell is. I'll be slapping Roger Goodell on TV.
I would love to see footage of Manjot slapping his TV off the wall. We're going to slap ourselves out of time. Manjot, give us all the plugs about where we can find you, and we'll get this done before we end up just losing our time.
All right. At Pastry Press NFL, at Pastry Press Sports on Instagram. We also have the Aussie End Zone, the Broncos Faithful podcast, other podcasts I do, and of course, Aussie NFL Fantasy. You can find that at Aussie NFL Fantasy on Instagram. There's still the Astro League 2021 Facebook page. Yeah, and of course, merch from T Public. It's always there, man. Always available. Get that Manjot of Liberty T-shirt while you can, because that's the best one.
It's the best one. We got to get your farewell.
No worries, Matty. Thanks so much for the podcast. I absolutely love getting on here with both you guys. You've both got such great knowledge, and it's always so much fun. And I know there's a fair bit of time before the actual fantasy season starts, but it's always good to sort of just touch base. And this free agency period has just been absolutely ridiculous. So it's always good to have a chat about it and just see the different opinions. We're not always going to agree, which is what I like about fantasy, but it's just been fantastic actually getting to have a chat with you guys. It's been phenomenal.
Do you know what I love about it though, is that we're not even near fantasy season, but we are just always so charged up to talk. There's always so much going on. You're into all your dynasty trades as well at the moment, which I probably need to go and rustle up a few of your rosters, to be honest. I haven't spent so much time on my dynasty teams lately. But, and we said this earlier, we don't play fantasy, we live it. So, every minute of every day, it's in there, and we keep an eye out for what's going on. We're just always talking about it. Our chat never stops between us three on the Instagram.
No. Not at all. It's different sports. It's just different, different things we're always talking about. And, like I said, I'm always talking about my different dynasty trades and stuff I'm doing at the moment. And it's just phenomenal. We're always having a good chat and a good laugh. And it's just so much fun doing it.
Now, I also got to say too, you're dead right about that, but we're actually getting an opportunity to go and join another podcast in the next week as well. I've got a mate over in the UK named Marv, and he runs a terrific podcast called Pods Like Us. He literally talks to folks who either run podcasts, listen to podcasts, or involved in creating podcasts. And he's invited us on, which is going to be fantastic. And the three of us can actually all make it. So once we get that collaboration done and it's published, we'll make sure we share links so everyone on the Aussie NFL Fantasy Nation can go and support Marv Smooth. I love that he's called Marv Smooth, and the Pods Like Us, because it's a great show. He's helped me discover other podcasts. His little tagline is to help you discover your next podcast addiction or obsession. And he's definitely helped put me in touch with one or two podcasts as well. So it's a great little resource, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with Marv. And I'm looking forward to dragging you Manjot on, and we'll play Weddle with him, I reckon. I think you'd like that.
For sure. And it's just awesome getting to talk to different people who are doing podcasts or helping out podcasters or whatever he's sort of trying to do there. Like it's everyone just has their different opinions, and everyone, being independent podcasters want to sort of get their voice out there and just talk about something they're really, really keen on. And that's all we really do. Like, we don't do this because we expect to get money out of it, or we expect to get all these ridiculous amount of views or whatever. Like, we do
you
it
don't
because we
expect to
love
get money.
it.
You expect to get money. You and your millions.
Sorry, my package just turned up with my briefcase of money, but
dump truck
I don't
full of
do it for that,
hundreds.
of course, mate. I do it for the love of money. Yeah, that's right. But I do it for the love of the game as well. So it's just so much fun. I'll live and breathe it, whether it's
You do.
NRL, basketball, or NFL, which I absolutely love doing. It's just phenomenal. So
I think
mate,
you were
it's
playing
been,
baseball one year too, weren't you? You played pretty much if you can fantasy,
Yeah,
as doing it. I think.
I think I've pretty much had a crack at every sport at one stage. I've pretty much sort of worked out that I like sort of going in seasons where I like to actually really, really focus on it. So NFL, I just stick to that, and then I just stick to the rugby league season with the Supercoach and stuff, and I try to just keep it just to that.
The mainstays.
If someone like talks me into playing something else, I'll probably do it just for the sake of it. And I'll probably end up like doing a podcast about it. I'll probably get so far in deep into it. Like I've been a genius for 10 years. That's pretty much the way I do things. But the way
I'm going to wind up producing the podcast you and Manjot do on Supercoach. I can see that. That's where this is going. I can see.
Yeah, I enjoy doing the whole overall thing, but I enjoy doing the draft league as well for Supercoach. But in terms of what I enjoy most, it's definitely NFL, and that's what I put up as the highest pedigree. And trying to defend my title in the Astro League is going to be of the utmost importance this year.
Good luck with them, mates, because the pedigree is pretty high for people who've. There's very few people who've ever won two at all. So hopefully you can really give it a shake, mate. Thank you again.
Keep that trophy home.
Exactly right. Bring it out. Drink from that silverware, mate.
Next week.
I'll catch up with you next week when we're up with Marv, but we won't leave it so long before we get another show out for this, because we'll either do a nice lead into the draft or maybe even a way too early ranking show, but we will come back with a really, really good show. Keep the Aussie NFL Fantasy Nation absolutely quenched to their thirst for fantasy knowledge.
Absolutely, mate. Can't wait.
All right, brother. Hooroo. Look after yourself.
Hooroo.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
So why not attack the host of this show?
I feel like we should organise some sort of prize for you or something. I don't know.
Last week, everyone had AIDS. This week, everyone has Yades.
Aussie.
Funnily enough, this position is called tight end, but it's leaving me with my end less than tight.
NFL.
You know what you do. You go and get T. Higgins.
I don't know why. I just had this feeling you wouldn't like Joe Mixon.
David Montgomery.
Hunter Henry.
Jarvis Landry.
Teddy Two Gloves.
Kenyon Drake.
Fantasy.
Byron Pringle was actually pretty good.
Yeah, mate. He was a Chris Kringle, that guy.
That didn't sound very exciting.
There's only one quarterback I think is hotter.
Don't take it. There's a pick I want, man. Don't take it, mate.
This is how big of a fan I am. I have a 49ers checker set.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
The only thing that was tightening up was my pants.